October 30th, 2024. The waters off of Yemen's coast. An MQ-9 Reaper drone is tracking something that shouldn't be there. The Hellfire missile, designed to obliterate tanks, buildings, people, whatever it touches, bounces off the target like a rubber ball hitting concrete. 9 months later, that footage would be shown to Congress, under oath, in broad daylight. Welcome to the new reality. Welcome back to Paranormal Directive 13, your weekly paranormal podcast. I'm your host, Matt, and tonight we're diving headfirst into the rabbit hole that swallowed Washington, D.C. whole. For 70 years, talking about UFOs in serious company was career suicide. You get laughed out of the Pentagon, blackballed from academia, and ridiculed by anyone with half a brain. The term itself, UFO, became cultural poison, dragged down by decades of little green men and tinfoil hat stereotypes. Then something changed, something big. We're going deep into the current state of UFO disclosure, at least here in the United States. Today, the same halls of Congress that once mocked flying saucer enthusiasts now host sworn testimony from decorated intelligence officers about secret programs recovering non-human biologics. The Pentagon, the fortress of denial, now operates an entire office dedicated to what they clinically call Unidentified Anomalous Phenomenon, UAP. This isn't your grandfather's UFO story. This isn't Betty and Barney. This isn't Travis Walton. This is a coordinated information warfare campaign executed by government officials and career military officers who've weaponized their security clearances to force the biggest conversation humanity has ever had. Tonight, we're mapping the battlefield, so to say. We're profiling the players. We're asking the question that keeps Washington insiders awake at night. If this is what they're telling us now, what are they still hiding? So let's start with December 16th, 2017, because that's the day where everything kind of changed. Not because aliens landed on the White House lawn, but because the New York Times published a front-page story that shattered 7 decades of official denial. The headline read, "Glowing auras and black money in quotes. The Pentagon's mysterious UFO program." But here's what made this different from every other UFO story you'd ever seen. This wasn't some rambling account from a farmer in Nebraska. This was the paper of record, citing official Pentagon sources with actual military footage attached. 3 videos specifically, FLIR, Gimbal, and Go Fast, which were recorded by the advanced targeting systems of U.S. Navy fighter jets. Objects performing maneuvers that seemed to mock the laws of physics. Pilots on cockpit audio literally saying, "What the fuck is that thing?" as they watched craft rotate and accelerate at impossible speeds. The Pentagon's eventual confirmation that these videos were authentic? That was the earthquake that cracked the foundation of official secrecy. But let's be clear about what happened here as well. This wasn't a leak. It was a strategic information campaign orchestrated by a handful of well-positioned individuals who understood that to change the conversation, you needed to change the messengers. The key was the linguistics of it all. They stopped using UFO, a culturally toxic term, and introduced UAP, Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena. It was new, it was sterile, it was bureaucratic. It was free of all the historical baggage. This wasn't about aliens anymore. This was about domain awareness and flight safety and potential adversary technology. Language that forced the military and intelligence communities to engage under a legitimate national security framework. And the ripple effects of this were immediate. Within months, Congress was demanding briefings. The Pentagon established task forces. And NASA, even though half of you guys think NASA lies about everything they say, NASA themselves started taking meetings about UFOs. The cultural taboo that had protected government secrecy for decades just kind of evaporated. And that is when the floodgates opened up. By 2021, we had our first official government report acknowledging 144 military UAP encounters since 2004, with only one of them that could actually be identified. By 2022, we had AARO, a permanent Pentagon office with a mandate to investigate not just current sightings, but historical cases dating back to 1945. And by 2023, we had David Grusch. So let's talk about the man who dropped the biggest bombshell in modern UFO history. David Grusch didn't grow up dreaming about flying saucers. He was a 14-year veteran of the Air Force, a decorated combat officer from Afghanistan, and a senior intelligence official with credentials that made him impossible to dismiss. From 2019 to 2022, he served as the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency's co-lead for UAP analysis and represented the NRO on the UAP task force. He was the ultimate insider. And on July 26, 2023, under oath before Congress, Grusch alleged the existence of a multi-decade UAP crash retrieval and reverse engineering program operating in complete violation of congressional oversight. We're talking about recovered craft of non-human origin. And here's where it gets even weirder, non-human biologics. But Grusch didn't stop there. He testified that people had been harmed or injured as part of the government's effort to conceal this information, and that he personally feared for his life after becoming a whistleblower. And the Pentagon's response was swift and absolute. Complete denial, of course. No such programs exist, never have, case closed. Which brings us to kind of the credibility paradox that's driving this entire circus. Either a highly decorated intelligence officer with an exemplary record is committing perjury for unknown reasons, or the Department of Defense is lying about the biggest secret in human history. So let's talk about the architect of this whole disclosure movement, Lue Elizondo, or Lue. Career counterintelligence officer. He ran operations in Afghanistan, at Gitmo, across South America. By 2017, he claimed to be running something called the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, AATIP, from inside the Pentagon. And this is where it gets a little messy. The Pentagon has consistently disputed Elizondo's role in the AATIP. They claim that he, quote, had no responsibilities with the program, which directly contradicts his own account and a letter from former Senator Harry Reid supporting his leadership role. To his supporters, this is evidence of a coordinated campaign to discredit him. And to his detractors, it suggests he's exaggerating his credentials. Either way, Elizondo resigned from the Pentagon in 2017 in protest of what he called excessive secrecy, and he's been the public face of disclosure ever since. Then we have Christopher Mellon, and if Elizondo was the frontline soldier of the 2017 revelation, Mellon was the general who planned the campaign. This guy's credentials are unshakable. Former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Intelligence, former staff director of the Senate Intelligence Committee, and descendant of the powerful Mellon banking family. Mellon was the one who personally delivered those 3 Navy videos to the New York Times. He knew exactly how to weaponize the legacy media to force the issue into mainstream consciousness. His op-eds in the Washington Post and Politico have shaped congressional thinking on UAPs, and his warning that the world is not ready for what the disclosure will reveal has become a rallying cry for the movement. So think about that with Mellon. If he just went to a podcast like myself or someone bigger, or he went to even Joe Rogan's podcast and put this information out there, it doesn't carry the same weight as the legacy media outlets. It might be starting to, but it still is different. A New York Times article is much different than someone saying, hey, he said this on a podcast. Now, Jeremy Corbell And I know there's a lot of divided opinions on Jeremy Corbell. He is the media amplifier of the modern UAP era. Filmmaker, documentarian, self-described ufologist celebrity. And the guy responsible for most of the leaked military footage that's been driving news cycles. His 2018 Bob Lazar documentary brought that controversial figure back into the mainstream media via Netflix. But Corbell's real impact has been a conduit for military leaks. The USS Omaha spherical object, the controversial pyramid UAPs, the Jellyfish footage from Iraq. By releasing this stuff, he forces the Pentagon into reactive positions. They have to confirm authenticity while downplaying significance. And his weaponized podcast with journalist George Knapp has become command central for the disclosure community, featuring exclusive interviews with whistleblowers and breaking news on developments. So these are the current faces of disclosure. But now we get into kind of the OG figures, the ones who've been pushing this narrative for decades. Starting with Dr. Stephen Greer. Now, Greer is the elder statesman of disclosure. He's a retired emergency room doctor who left medicine in the 90s to pursue ufology full-time. His 2001 National Press Club event, featuring testimony from 20-plus military witnesses, was the direct precursor to today's congressional hearings. But here's where Greer gets interesting. He's become one of the disclosure movement's biggest internal critics. He's developed this theory he calls the cosmic hoax, alleging that a shadowy cabal within the military-industrial complex is planning to stage a fake alien invasion using reverse-engineered technology. Anyone here remember Project Bluebeam? Go back a couple episodes, get some details on that. To Greer, the current UAP narrative is being co-opted for nefarious human purposes. He also promotes something called CE5, Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, claiming that through meditation and consciousness techniques, people can initiate contact with extraterrestrial intelligence. Whether you buy that or not, Greer has built a global following and generates serious revenue from expeditions and retreats. And that is part of the reason why Greer is controversial, because he's made a lot of money doing this. But to be fair, I don't blame him. You know, you have a way to cash in. We live in a capitalistic society. Cash in. Then we get to Bob Lazar, the original iconoclast. In 1989, this guy told Las Vegas journalist George Knapp, who is on the podcast with Jeremy Corbell, that he'd worked at a secret facility called S4, reverse engineering alien spacecraft powered by a stable isotope of element 115. And here's the thing about Lazar. His story is culturally powerful but factually suspect. MIT and Caltech have no record of him attending despite his claims of advanced degrees. His supposed work at Los Alamos was as a technician for a contractor, not as a physicist. And at the time, element 115 did not exist. It was eventually synthesized in 2003, but all known isotopes decay in milliseconds, nothing like the stable fuel source he described. But despite all the evidence against his claims, Lazar remains an iconic figure. His story, refreshed by Corbell's 2018 documentary, continues attracting new audiences. And here's the thing with Lazar, and he's said this before, that whoever's in control in the government or above them of this information has gone back and wiped his record clean of all these claims, you know, saying that he went to MIT and Caltech, that he worked at S4, that he was a physicist. All of these things he claims have been wiped from existence in the record. Which honestly, if you're blowing the lid off something as big as this, is not something that I could see outside of the realm of possibility happening. It wouldn't surprise me at all if they went and tried to erase his records to discredit what he was saying. And also the fact, why would you make up element 115 in 1989? You just, do they think he picked a random number? Because then we found it. It's not like it's something that doesn't exist. Yes, the version he claimed that he worked with doesn't exist in our technology, but the element has been found and exists. So if we're talking advanced creatures capable of interstellar travel, why is it outside of the thought that they couldn't have found a way to stabilize this? That's what I don't understand. When people use that to discredit Lazar, we don't know what these creatures or beings or entities are capable of doing technologically. If you showed a caveman a nuclear bomb, he would never have thought that humans could have made that. So that part of it is something for me that I think it adds credibility to his story. So let's talk about how secrets get kept for 70 plus years. Imagine you're an Air Force technician in 1968. You're working late shift at some classified facility when you see something. Let's say it's a craft that moves like nothing should be able to move. And what happens next isn't some dramatic Men in Black scenario. You don't get neuralized. It's bureaucratic strangulation. First comes the briefing. You're told that what you saw was classified above your pay grade. Probably some experimental aircraft that could give enemies a tactical advantage if word got out. Makes sense, right? Middle of the Cold War, all that. Then comes the paperwork. Non-disclosure agreements stacked so thick they'd choke a horse. Legal language that makes it clear talking about this could land you in federal prison for espionage. But the real genius isn't in the threats. It's in the compartmentalization. You only know what you saw that night. You don't know who else saw similar things. You don't know if there's a pattern. You don't know if there's a larger program. And this is how special access programs work. Information is sliced into tiny fragments distributed across different agencies, contractors, and clearance levels. The left hand literally doesn't know what the right hand is doing. That part's not conspiracy. That is standard operating procedure. And according to the documents we're working from, programs like AATIP operated under this exact framework. Even when Lue Elizondo was allegedly running UAP investigations for the Pentagon, he claims he was denied access to crash retrieval data. And Matthew Brown, the whistleblower behind the Immaculate Constellation revelations, alleges the existence of AI-powered systems that automatically collect and quarantine UAP imagery from military sensors, keeping it away from normal intelligence channels. And if true, that's next level. The machines themselves are keeping secrets, which, if you've hopped on ChatGPT, is not out of the realm of possibility. And that makes a lot of sense to me. But there's another layer to this secrecy onion, or let's call it a parfait, in honor of Donkey from Shrek, because everyone loves a parfait. Ridicule campaigns. The documents describe how the cultural taboo around UFOs wasn't just organic. It was deliberately cultivated. Make the topic laughable, and you don't need to classify everything. People self-censor. And think about that. For decades, admitting you'd seen a UFO was almost like social suicide. It was for sure career suicide, especially in certain areas. Military pilots knew that filing a UAP report or UFO report could ground them permanently. And intelligence officers knew it could end their clearances. Scientists knew it could tank their funding. The beauty of this system is that it's self-reinforcing. The more ridiculous the topic seems, the less likely credible witnesses are to come forward. And the fewer credible witnesses, the more ridiculous the topic seems. David Grusch claims that he faced what he called administrative terrorism for his whistleblower activities. Harassment designed to silence him and send a message to other potential whistleblowers. And multiple witnesses at recent congressional hearings have testified about career retaliation for reporting UAP incidents. And this is essentially what theoretically happened to Bob Lazar. Now, here's what's really wild. The secrecy infrastructure is so embedded that even when Congress demands answers, agencies can legally stonewall them. classification levels above congressional clearances, programs so compartmentalized that cabinet-level officials don't know they exist, contractors holding materials under proprietary protection that even government oversight can't penetrate. It's the perfect machine for keeping secrets. It's almost too perfect. Now, September 9th, 2025, a congressional hearing room in Washington. Representative Eric Burleson from Missouri clicks play on a video that he shouldn't have. On the screen, footage from October 30th, 2024. An MQ-9 drone is tracking a metallic orb off the coast of Yemen. The object is roughly 10 feet across, hovering across the water. The drone fires a Hellfire missile, and the missile bounces off. This is the moment UAP disclosure entered a new phase. Now, I don't know if you've seen this video, and I'm going to link it into the show notes because it's pretty crazy. So you have this UAP that's flying across the water, and you see the missile come out of like the top left corner of your screen. And it smashes into this like orb ball of whatever it is. And you see the missile fly off, like deflect and fly off into the bottom right of the screen. But in the orb itself that it hits, 3 pieces become dislodged and start flying behind it. So you got the main craft, the main circle, gets hit by this missile, and then 3 pieces tail off of it and start flying back towards the original orb to keep up with it. And the theory that I've heard with it is that it's potentially this orb was a force field of some kind for the UAPs, and the missile hit it just enough to dislodge these 3 craft from their shield, from their cloaking or whatever this is. And so these things are getting pushed out of their field that they were in, and they're flying back to try and catch up to get back into the field. But if you haven't seen the video, check out the show notes so you can see the link to it, because it is a pretty crazy video to watch. For the first time, we're seeing verified military footage of advanced weaponry being completely ineffective against an unidentified object. And the implications for this are staggering. Either our enemies have developed technology that renders our most sophisticated weapons useless, or something else entirely is operating in our airspace. The hearing, titled Restoring Public Trust Through UAP Transparency and Whistleblower Protection, featured more than just explosive footage. Navy Senior Chief Petty Officer Alexandra Wiggins testified under oath about a 2023 incident involving 4 semi-luminous tic-tac-shaped objects emerging from the ocean. Now, those tic-tac UFOs in 23, this is where Stephen Greer's claims come into play, because Greer claims that over 90% of the UFO UAPs that people are seeing are actually top secret military tech reverse engineered from non-human beings or non-human technology. And the Tic Tac UFOs have come to be known officially as Lockheed Martin tech. So this incident involving the Tic Tac shaped objects are known to be Lockheed Martin tech. Where they got the technology from this is what's unknown and theorized to be reverse engineered from crash sites and other data and potentially contact with other entities and beings and cultures that are showing us technology in exchange for what some claim we are abducting humans in exchange for alien technology, which is a wild claim. Now, multiple witnesses describe career retaliation for reporting UAP encounters, some claiming ongoing blacklisting from intelligence community positions. And the message was clear. The machinery of secrecy is still grinding away, even as Congress itself demands transparency. So let's back up a little bit and trace how we got here. The Grusch hearing in July 2023 was the watershed moment, but the official machinery had been building for years. AARO, the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, achieved full operational capability in October 2024, with Dr. John Kosolowski taking over as director from Sean Kilpatrick. Their latest report, released in November 2024, reveals some startling numbers. 1,652 total UAP reports received as of October 24, 2024. That's 757 new reports between May 2023 and June 2024 alone. Of those cases, 21 require further investigation and remain unexplained. 49 were resolved as conventional objects, balloons, birds, drones, whatever. But here's the kicker. 444 cases lack sufficient data for analysis. That's not exactly the picture of a phenomenon that's easily explained away. AARO is also testing something called the Gremlin sensor system, a prototype designed specifically for detecting and tracking UAPs, currently deployed at an undisclosed national security site for 90-day pattern analysis. They're building an infrastructure for hunting these. Meanwhile, Jeremy Corbell has been doing what he does best, dropping leaked military footage that forces uncomfortable conversations. Throughout 2024 and into 2025, he's released a steady stream of verified recordings. The Jellyfish UAP from Iraq in 2018, a translucent jellyfish-like object demonstrating what he calls transmedium capabilities, able to operate seamlessly across air and water. The disc-shaped object from the Afghanistan-Pakistan border in 2020, filmed by U.S. Air Force platforms. Each of these releases follows the same pattern. Corbell publishes, the Pentagon confirms authenticity, and then downplays significance. But the biggest revelation of 2024 might be the Immaculate Constellation program, exposed by whistleblower Matthew Brown in a 3-part interview series with Corbell and George Knapp. Brown's allegations are specific and detailed. A secret Pentagon program using artificial intelligence to automatically collect and quarantine UAP imagery from military sensors. According to Brown, this AI system identifies potential UAP encounters in real time and sequesters the data away from normal intelligence channels, creating a hidden archive of high-quality UAP evidence that Congress and the public have never seen. And if true, this suggests that while AARO is publicly analyzing a few dozen ambiguous cases, there could be thousands of clear, high-resolution UAP encounters locked away in classified databases. And the Pentagon's response to Brown's claims? Of course, we all know, denial. But Brown's report was deemed credible enough to be submitted to Congress as part of the November 2024 House Oversight hearing. And then there's the Kona Blue revelation from March 2024. AARO disclosed a previously unknown program that was proposed to the Department of Homeland Security in the 2010s, a reverse engineering effort designed to study recovered extraterrestrial craft. The program was rejected for lacking merit and never actually recovered any materials, but its very existence validates the pattern that whistleblowers have been describing. Government agencies seriously considering crash retrieval scenarios. And what's particularly interesting is that AARO revealed Kona Blue voluntarily as part of their historical review. They didn't have to tell us about it. The fact that they did suggests either unprecedented transparency or, more likely, a calculated move to get ahead of potential leaks. And the legislative response has been bipartisan but frustrated. The UAP Disclosure Act, championed by Senators Chuck Schumer and Mike Rounds, has faced repeated setbacks. The 2024 version was significantly weakened from its original proposal, removing eminent domain provisions that would have forced private contractors to surrender UAP materials. But Congress isn't giving up. New whistleblower protection legislation specifically for UAP cases has been introduced, aimed at addressing the retaliation concerns raised by multiple witnesses. Senator Rounds expressed confidence in September 2025, just this month, that UAP disclosure provisions would remain in the National Defense Authorization Act, unlike previous years when they were stripped out at the last minute. And the cultural momentum is undeniable. What started as fringe conspiracy theory has become bipartisan national security priority. The question is whether this pressure will finally crack open the vaults of this government secrecy, or whether we'll get stuck in a permanent state of acknowledgement without confirmation, where officials admit the phenomenon exists while denying any extraordinary explanations.
We all prefer things a certain way, like groceries. If you want groceries just how you like them, you gotta try Instacart. They have a new preference picker that lets you pick how ripe or unripe you want your bananas. Shoppers can see your preferences up front, helping guide their choices. Because when it comes to groceries, the details matter. Instacart. Get groceries just how you like.
Now, David Grusch has alleged private contractors are holding UAP materials under proprietary protection that even government oversight can't penetrate. That's a crucial detail, because it suggests that the most sensitive materials aren't held by government agencies at all, but by private companies operating under corporate secrecy laws. So think about that here. Government programs can be subpoenaed by Congress. They're subject to Freedom of Information Act requests. Whistleblowers can expose them through Inspector General complaints. But private contractors? They've got legal shields that make government classification look like tissue paper. So what kind of contractors might we be looking at? Based on the technical requirements described by witnesses, you would need companies with expertise in materials science, propulsion systems, energy storage, and sensor technology. You need facilities with the highest security clearances and a track record of keeping secrets for decades. Now, the usual suspects would include the major aerospace and defense contractors: Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, Boeing, Raytheon, most likely SpaceX at this point. But here's where it gets interesting. You might also need companies that specialize in exotic materials research, quantum computing, or advanced energy systems, fields that didn't even exist when these alleged programs supposedly began. The documents reveal that AARO's historical review covered government programs dating back to 1945, but there's no mention of contractor activities being included in that scope. If the most sensitive work has been privatized, AARO might not even have the authority to investigate it. Matthew Brown's Immaculate Constellation allegations suggest that AI systems are being used to automatically quarantine UAP data. That kind of sophisticated data management would require contractors with advanced AI capabilities. Companies that might not have existed when the alleged programs began, but could have been brought in as the technology evolved. And here's another thought, is what if the real breakthrough isn't understanding the alien technology, but it's developing systems on how to hide it? The most valuable contractor might not be the one reverse engineering propulsion systems, but the one perfecting the digital camouflage, scrubbing sensor data, manipulating archives, and creating the infrastructure of invisibility. And now there are also emerging witnesses who haven't gone public yet, but are reportedly in contact with congressional investigators. People beyond Grusch and Brown, though specific details remain classified or under legal protection. And this could represent the beginning of a second wave of disclosure, a cascade effect where initial testimonies give other insiders the courage to come forward. Or it could be a carefully managed information campaign designed to maintain public interest without revealing anything too sensitive. The challenge for the investigators is separating genuine whistleblowers from potential disinformation assets. And the intelligence community has a long history of using genuine secrets to hide other secrets, feeding selective disclosure to control larger narratives. What's clear is that the phenomenon is evolving from isolated testimonies to systematic investigations. Congressional committees are developing specialized expertise in UAP matters, and AARO is building institutional knowledge and sensor capabilities. And the media figures like Corbell and Knapp are creating platforms for continued disclosure. Whether this leads to genuine transparency or more sophisticated concealment remains to be seen, but the momentum is undeniable. And the question is whether it's momentum toward truth or momentum toward a more convincing version of secrets. Now, outside of UAPs in general, the movement has created some really weird political dynamics in Washington. On the left, you've got Chuck Schumer, the Senate Majority Leader, pushing legislation that sounds like it was ripped from a science fiction novel. The UAP Disclosure Act includes provisions for eminent domain seizure of recovered alien technology from private contractors. On the right, you've got representatives like Eric Burleson and Tim Burchett demanding transparency from the Pentagon about secret programs that may or may not involve extraterrestrial technology. The bipartisan nature of UAP interest is unprecedented in modern American politics, at a time where we can barely agree on basic things. You have lawmakers from both parties united in their frustration with the Pentagon stonewalling. The September 2025 hearing featured moments where representatives seemed genuinely angry, not at witnesses, but at their own government for what they saw as deliberate obstruction. But there are cracks in the unity as well. Of course, some lawmakers clearly approach UAPs as a national security issue, potential adversary technology that needs immediate investigation, while others seem more open to exotic explanations. And then there's still others who appear skeptical of the entire enterprise, but unwilling to be seen as dismissing credible military witnesses. And the media response has been equally fractured. Legacy outlets like the New York Times and the Washington Post and major networks have generally treated UAP disclosure as a legitimate news story, focusing on congressional oversight and national security. But they've been careful to avoid endorsing any particular explanation. Now, cable news has been a little bit more sensational, with some personalities embracing the alien angle while others mock the entire subject. And social media, of course, has been ridiculous as always, as we always expect. Everything from serious analysis to memes to jokes to conspiracies, everything you can think of on social media. The question I have for all of you with everything that we've heard from who's reporting things, the different programs that have been uncovered, what's been learned, specifically, the Tic Tac UAPs and all that. If these are the things they are telling us now, or willing to tell us, how much more is there that they're not willing to tell us? Thank you guys so much for checking out this episode on the current state of UAP disclosure. This is a wild, wild subject. On one hand, you have people like Stephen Greer, who claims that there are secret government facilities who have reverse engineered this technology, who are planning false flag operations to kidnap human beings in quote unquote faked abductions, saying 90% of all UAPs that people are seeing are actually top secret false flag government operations, and not just from the United States government. Then you have the conspiracy angle, where people claim that humans are being taken by the government under false abductions and then being traded or exchanged in some way for alien technology. And then you have Bob Lazar, who Bob believes, for the most part, interstellar extraterrestrial beings are benevolent and nice, and his CE5 program is all about making contact with peaceful beings who genuinely want to help us. And then you have Corbell. I'm personally a fan of Corbell, but then you have Corbell, who people claim that his whole thing with George Knapp that he's doing and pushing this disclosure narrative is all a government plant, that he is the main disinformation plant through the government. While Corbell himself is sitting there in interviews talking about how he's heard of witnesses being quote unquote silenced and that He has potential fears for his own life with things. And this whole thing is just so nuanced in every way. Do I personally believe that we have recovered alien technology and reverse engineered it in some way, shape, or form? Absolutely yes. 100% yes. There's not a doubt in my mind. Do I think we're running false flag operations to stage fake abductions of humans? No. I mean, that seems... I wouldn't be surprised if it became fact, if it was confirmed. But I don't think we're doing that. I really don't think we're trading humans for technology. Like, that just seems a little far-fetched for me. What would be even the purpose of that? What are they going to gain from us taking a random person and giving us access to stable element 115? That doesn't make sense in equality of a trade there. So that doesn't make sense. Stephen Greer claiming that he believes that all of these entities are benevolent in nature. I don't think I buy that either. I think for the majority, they probably are. But then you have the dark forest theory, which means, you're alone in a dark forest and you don't see anything. Why don't you see anything? Well, because the easiest thing to do, because whenever you do see something, you don't know if it's friendly or hostile, is to eliminate it. So the dark forest theory kind of suggests that even a benevolent race, if they found us, the safest course of action for them is to just eliminate us. Now, I think in the grand scheme of things, because I am a believer in extraterrestrials, I honestly think it's silly not to believe that we're not the only ones in the universe. You're going to have a mix of both. I've seen Star Wars, I've seen Star Trek. As much as those are science fiction, it makes sense. There's going to be good and bad. There's going to be good and evil. Whether you want to frame that in a religious lens or you want to frame it in a secular lens of just good versus bad, positive and negative energies. There's always going to be someone who doesn't see eye to eye with someone else. It just is what it is. Or maybe that's just my human monkey brain understanding it as humans do and be like, yeah, of course, maybe you get advanced enough and develop enough and evolve enough as a species, you truly can be peaceful with everybody. Possibly. I would like to think so. That would be great. The crazy part for all this for me is this all kind of started to want to be an episode right now, not even because of the recent September hearing, but really because of 3i Atlas. And people talking about, and myself included, is this alien? Is this a rock? It's most likely a rock. And it's more and more likely as it gets closer, looking more and more like a rock. But just the idea that it could have been something else and what we would do in that situation. And the social media responses to that are so wild, like varying from one extreme to the other, from all the way from people saying aliens don't exist, it's just a rock, to people saying it's a ship coming and it's going to obliterate us all, to people saying it's a ship coming and they're going to help us, to people saying that it's the rapture. So the wild theories on what things could be and what is going on is so hard to sift through and figure out what is truth and what is not truth. What this all boils down to for me is how much of the government secrecy can we get uncovered? Because dating back to Project Blue Book, everything is about secrecy and maintaining control and order. So them pushing this disclosure information right now, and I know Congress is big on wanting to push it out there, but we all are pretty sure that there's a higher agency than Congress that is controlling what's actually happening. I mean, I don't know if I necessarily believe in a new world order, the elite controlling the elite, but I believe that most governments and stuff that we see are operating under the guise of something that's telling them what to do of some way, shape, or form. Pushing back on that, with Congress pushing back on what's being held secret and by who's holding it secret, is really the main part for me. Is what are we going to be able to uncover? Because it's not going to be all of it. It won't be. There's no possible way we are going to uncover all of it. So what can we uncover? We already know that the Tic Tac UAP is Lockheed Martin tech. So when I drove by Lockheed Martin the other day, I was staring out the window at it. I was like, what do they got in there? What is in that building that they don't want us to know? Because the Tic Tac was put into these disclosure hearings as a UAP. And it had to be identified later, pretty unwillingly, that it was Lockheed Martin tech. Because they couldn't explain it away. They couldn't find a different way to explain it. So if we're able to get this technology, most likely reverse engineered from something else that we've found or been given, what else is there that we don't know? Thank you guys so much for being here today. I really appreciate you listening. I hope you liked this episode. We can go way deeper into this rabbit hole and explain more things. So maybe we'll do that in a future episode or, on the social medias or something like that. But if you liked the episode, please, please, please go on and give us a review and leave a rating and share the show. It means everything to growing the podcast. And fun fact, I just got my first ever 1-star rating, which is fantastic. Because again, honestly, if you hate the show, leave me a 1-star or a 2-star or whatever. I hope you guys all want to leave 5 stars. But if you truly hate the show, leave a 1. The problem I have with this 1-star is whoever left it didn't leave me a review. So I don't know why they think I suck. Is it the topics? Is it my storytelling? Is it just my voice? Do they just think I have a stupid voice so they gave me a 1-star? I don't really care. But I mean, if you want me to make the show better for you and you don't tell me why you think it's bad, I can't really do anything with that. So reviews are awesome, guys. Good, bad, in between, whatever. Let me know what you think. I really appreciate it, and it means a lot to me. Check out the Patreon, patreon.com/paranormaldirective13. We have minisodes on there. We have pictures on here. I will be putting up as many pictures of these disclosure documents and things like that I can find, and I'll put them up there. I'll throw a link on there also to Corbell and Steve Greer, because they have tons of documents and videos and all that. And it's almost easier to categorize them through their work than it is to try and pull it all and put it on something else. So those will be up there. Also, check out social medias, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, all at Paranormal Directive 13. TikTok still hates me. I just got flagged for a Star Wars video the other day, so I don't know what their deal is, but we're still going to keep at it. We're still going to keep posting over there, so check those out. And also, guys, make sure to tune in next week for the next episode of Paranormal Directive 13.